Hello, welcome to this session on Essential Digital Skills Presentations. Thank you for joining us. This session is part of our Shine Bright at Work programme, which includes other presentations such as collaboration, intro to Excel, communicating in the workplace, and data get to the point. And you can find all these on our platform. My name's Chris and I'm going to be your trainer today, so let's get started. By the end of this short session on presentations, you'll be able to identify good practices when designing and creating presentations. As with many things, creating a presentation is a series of decisions. How your presentation turns out is based on these decisions. Our first decision is what software to use. Apple Keynote, Microsoft PowerPoint, or Google Slides. It may be that you don't have much of a choice. If your company operates using Apple, then you'll most likely use Keynote. If, like most, it runs on Microsoft, then you'll likely use PowerPoint. Google Slides is a browser-based tool, so this one is freely available on both. A word of warning. Although these tools are all designed to create presentations, they are not fully compatible with each other. For example, if you create a presentation in PowerPoint, don't expect it to look and run as it does if you open it in either Keynote or Google Slides. It will open, but where one tool has an option, the other may not, and it will convert anything it doesn't like into something it does, often to the detriment of your presentation. To create a well put together presentation, you must apply some core design principles. You don't need to be a graphic designer, but you should understand some of the basics. And we're going to take you through each of these in turn. First off, let's take a look at fonts. Typeface is an important decision to make, and one that once you've made, you should stick with. A good rule of thumb is to choose no more than 2 different fonts, definitely no more than 3. Generally, one for heading text and one for the body text. These can be the same, and as before, you might not get a chance as it could be part of your brand guidelines to use a specific font. There are 2 core types of font, serif, the ones with the little flicks, and sans serif, without the little flicks. This is an example of a serif font, which is Times New Roman, and you can see it has the little flicks and wings. A serif font is usually reserved for formal, professional type or print documents. You'll see Times New Roman in hundreds of newspapers and magazines. A common example of a sans serif font is Arial. Sans serifs don't have the little flicks or wings, and this makes them a good choice for use on digital devices, as they can scale up and down in size and then still be easy to read. If you do have a choice, consider the readability of your font. For the body, you want something that is clean and easy to read, so sans serif is a good choice, as this can make your presentation more accessible to those with dyslexia. A good tip when copying and pasting text into your presentation is to select Use Destination Theme from the clipboard menu that will appear when you paste your text. This will ensure your copied text takes on the theme settings of the destination you have set for your presentation. Otherwise, you could end up with a whole mishmash of fonts, colours, weights, and this will distract your audience. Font availability is also something to consider. Just because you have a specific font doesn't mean everyone else has it. It won't affect you if you're presenting live and everyone is watching your screen, but if you save the file and send it to them, when they open it on their device, that perfect font you spent ages choosing will be replaced with a stock font like Arial. So, for example, like Snow will look like this. Sanguru will look like this. Beanbag will look like this. And this old school 8-bit game looking font, you guessed it, will look like this. All Arial. Typeface hierarchy is also important, as it makes it easier for the audience to know where to look first, what the important information is, and can also be used to break up the groups of text to make it easy to digest. Heading is the most important part and should be at the top to attract the attention. It can be bigger, bolder, different colour, or a mix of all 3. Subheadings are smaller than the headings but bigger than the body. They're not always used but can be useful to share more information. And the body font is the content, and it will be the smallest of the font sizes used. Don't worry, your screens aren't going funny. I blurred out that content because I didn't want you to get started reading Alice in Wonderland whilst I was talking. Here's an example of typeface hierarchy. Have a look at this slide. I bet, like me, You read the right-hand side first, followed it through in exactly the same order as it was laid out, and then you went over to the left-hand side. This is a classic example of typeface hierarchy, and it really shows the impact of how, when a slide is set up correctly, you can control where the reader looks. Okay, so now let's have a look at white space. To start with, white space doesn't have to be white. What is meant by white space is more about creating contrast in areas that includes focal points to draw your attention to areas of interest. Here's a slide with plenty of space, technically nothing wrong with it. The image is clear and includes only the text that is required. But it could be better. We could associate the address with the building a lot more if we do this. We've zoomed in and we've cropped the image to size, and we've overlaid a simple rectangle with the text on top. By applying this simple enhancement, it brings more details out of the image. As you can see now, the Severn Trent logo building name is clearly visible, and we still have a nice clear text that's easy to read. And we've associated that address with the building. There's no confusing it. Let's have a look at colours. Colour contrasting to start with. Choosing the right colours is crucial to how your presentation is going to look and, more importantly, be viewed. Colour blindness affects around 10% of the population, so making sure your presentation doesn't fall foul of bad colour choices is key. The Web Content Accessibility Guide states that colour contrast should be 4.5 to 1 or above to ensure everyone can see it properly. Here, like most companies, we have a colour palette of colours to use as part of our branding, so we can choose from a predetermined set of colours. Now, whilst they work together on a page, that doesn't necessarily mean they work together. Let's have a look at these two circles. Circle 1's contrast is so low the two colours almost blend into each other, and Circle 2's, although it stands out more, the colours are not complementary, and if I look at it too long, it makes my eyes go funny. What we need is a ratio above 4.5, and using a great free resource at webaim.org, you can check what you have by entering your colours. Neither of these circles pass, as you can see. Simply by changing the colour of the text has massively improved the contrast of Circle 1, and now Circle 2 no longer gives me a headache. You could also add a drop shadow to add emphasis and make it sit above the slide. Now you may be thinking this is common sense, but you'll be surprised how many times it happens. Colours in data. Using colours in data can also help to enhance both design and understanding of the data. But don't forget, those with colour blindness may not actually be able to see the colours you're trying to represent. In this example, we could have coloured the left axis red to green to indicate a positive grade. But if you can't see the colour, it will just be a line. So you should always represent it both in colour and text. Data can also be shown using colour, but remember to also include annotations to make things crystal clear. Colour can also be used well, albeit sparingly, to enhance text. Most people read text on screen, but can only take in certain words or passages. So if you highlight the keywords you want your audience to relate to, you stand a better chance of them taking away the right information. Images. Using images in presentations can be a great way of reducing text, keeping your presentation interesting and for visual storytelling. There are some key things to consider though. Make sure your images are clear, I mean crystal clear. The higher the resolution, the better. Now it could increase your file size, but there are ways to reduce that whilst maintaining a good resolution. Don't be afraid to manipulate an image to show a visual story. Take this image, nice, clear, high resolution of some delicious looking oranges. With a little image manipulation, all within PowerPoint, we can drop the colour from the image and highlight just a portion of it to represent a fifth, making the statement more dramatic. By the way, I totally made up that fact, so don't hold me to it. As I've said, using images is a good way of enhancing the presentation, but be careful. Using the wrong image or too many images will have the opposite effect. Overusing images on one slide all at once like this isn't good. I'm talking whilst you're all having a good look, trying to figure out why I've used that picture. Keep the slides simple and consider controlling the entrances with animation. Don't just chuck them in. Place them in a logical way that makes them easy for the audience to focus on. Don't use blurry images or ones that don't really show anything. All of these images are examples of evidence provided by some of our staff that have been gathered from past incidents, and none of them are useful. And lastly, don't use unlicensed images. Using images with watermarks just shows you've stolen them straight off the internet. Either contact the owner and ask if you can use it, pay to use it, or just find a different image that is free to use. Don't worry, I didn't steal this one. It's an image I've created just for this presentation. Grids. The grid system is key to a good layout. Everyone is used to a grid system, from magazines, newspapers, and websites. The same principle should be applied to a presentation. Grid systems allow the audience to focus on the content in a logical way. This is a slide I've extracted from one of our other courses that we have to offer, and it's a good example of where someone has tried to lay their text out well, changing a simple, boring bullet point list into something much more interesting, but we can improve it still. Because there are several sections, you're not quite sure where you should be looking first. Do I read top to bottom, then left to right, or left to right, then top to bottom? By simply reordering the elements and making full use of the slide space, we can present the same information in a simpler, more visually appealing and easier to read format. Here's another example from another course we have. Images are good at representing content, as long as there is a clear context and a focus order. What is the hierarchy of this slide? Where do you look first? That's right, everyone will look somewhere different. Some will look in the center of the group, some will look left to right round a circle, or top round a circle, maybe even anti-clockwise. And has anybody noticed what is wrong with one of the pictures? That's right, that clock has watermarks on it. They're faint, but they are there. Plus, watch out for widow words. The title here has one. You should have it all on one line or move more text down to create more equal spacing between words. So what can we do about this? Taking a little time and ordering the content, we can transform this slide slightly. How about this? Ordering this slide allows the audience to quickly and easily scan the slide whilst listening to the presentation. And having titles also gives the images context. Here the point of the slide is to consider these things when looking for a new job. A quick search of free resources also meant I could replace the clock image with a more appropriate option. Also, if you're going to lay images out full width, make sure they're aligned. If you want a gap, have a gap. If you don't, don't. This slide is well laid out. This one, not so much. There are little differences, but they make a big impact. Graphs. Graphs and charts can be a great way of showing information visually, allowing an audience to easily see a trend or result straight away. They're commonly used, but not always well. This graph, for example, shows all the relevant data, but whilst I'm talking to you, you're all busy trying to interpret the data and work out what I'm trying to show, and it's not easy. Graphs should be clear, well labelled, and show only the relevant information. So let's update this one. Now, each data set has a unique colour, and in this example, I've been able to associate the colour with the series, all the different fruits, and I've included the data point figures so you don't have to try and work them out. We still have you trying to interpret the data whilst I'm presenting it. A better way would be for me to control the elements and have them appear when I want them. Taking a little time and adding some animation can really help. For example, start with a blank chart but still showing the axis. Your audience now know they're looking at a graph but don't have it to interpret anything, so they're focused on you. And whilst you have their attention, you can bring in the data as you want it. Mangoes are selling well for this time of year with 0.58 million in the last quarter. Pears are at their best with 1.25 million. Oranges are slightly down on this time last quarter with just over 2 million, but still doing well. Bananas staying steady on just over 2.5. And as usual, apples outselling all with 2.84 million. And we can easily show a difference between any data sets. So how can we close this 2.25 million difference, people? It may take a little extra effort, but your audience will have a much better experience and understanding of the information you're showing them. And data depending, you could also organise the data into alphabetical or chronological order, which may help your audience interpret the data further. Now, some things you should start doing. Using colour. Use the language of colour as a shorthand in your slides. Red for wrong, green for right, yellow and black for danger. Or use what you know of the colour wheel to make important elements stand out on your slides. Think complementary opposites to make things really stand out. But remember, it needs to contrast well. Use timelines. Dates and events are so much easier to understand when you arrange them on a timeline, and they also look much nicer than a bullet-pointed list with some haphazard illustrations. Using images. Why have a paragraph of text when you can label a nice glossy product image or illustrate parts of a classy stock photo? Not only does it look better, but it's also much easier for your audience to retain the information. Alignment. Make use of the alignment tools. This Microsoft icon is just 1 or 2 pixels out, but you can still see it, and it just shows that the graphic was rushed. Placeholders. If you know your presentation is going to be a few slides, consider setting up some templates and placeholders so that your presentation has a consistent flow. Be careful though not to accidentally move them. If you start moving them around, your presentation can end up looking awkward and unprofessional. And here's some things you should stop doing. Text. Bullet points. Bullet points are ineffective at communicating information. So break your text up into keywords and arrange it into shapes for easy animation. Try to have as little text as possible, as whilst you're presenting, the audience is reading, which is ineffective. Pasting. Pasting graphs and text into presentations as images, as this, makes the content completely uneditable. If you or someone else needs to update your presentation in the future, they would either have to access the original content or completely recreate it. You won't be thanked. And screen readers also can't read an image, so it means your presentation won't be as accessible to those that require screen readers. Text size. This is a fine line. If your text is too small, your audience won't be able to see it. So try to stay on or above 14 point. If your text needs to be smaller than 12 to fit on your slide, then you have too much text. And if you go too big, you could dominate the slide with the text and take focus off your content. Animation. Contrary to some opinions, animations done well can help to enhance the flow of your presentation and enhance emphasis on key areas. So if you have a presentation built for you that includes animations, practice it so you can get comfortable with the timings rather than panicking and removing them all. However, overuse or inappropriate animations will do the opposite. That goes for transitions as well. Stick to a simple fade. Build mode. There's a good reason there is a presentation mode. So when presenting, you should always make sure you use it. The only time you should present whilst in build mode is if you're showing a demonstration or how to do something. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed it. You'll find loads more information on our platform, so please feel free to have a look around and see what you can find that will help you. See you soon.